Genesis 22, starting on verse 1. We're gonna talk about prayers because of our series on communication, restoration, prayers during times of trial, okay? Trials of faith. Genesis 22, verse 1. After these things, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, here I am, he answered. Take your son, he said, your only son, Isaac, whom you love. Go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took with him two of his young men and his son Isaac. He split wood for a burnt offering and set out to the place God has told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in a distance. Now remember, I think at this point, Abraham was something like 127 years old. Okay. Then Abraham said to his young man, stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there to worship. Then we'll come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac. In his hand he took the fire and the knife, and the two of them walked on together. Then Isaac spoke to his father Abraham and said, my father. And he replied, here I am, my son. Isaac said, the fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. Then the two of them walked on together. When they arrived at the place that God had told him about, Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood. He bound his son Isaac and placed him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out and took the knife to slaughter his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. He replied, here I am. Then he said, do not lay a hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God and you have not withheld your only son from me. Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham named the place the Lord will provide, or Jehovah Jireh. So they said it will be provided on the Lord's mountain. Then the angel of the Lord called to Abraham a second time from heaven and said, by myself I have sworn, this is the Lord's declaration. Because you have done this thing and have not withheld your only son, I will indeed bless you and make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky and the sand on the seashore. Your offspring will possess the city gates of their enemies, and all the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring because you have obeyed my command. Abraham went back to his young men, and they got up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham settled in Beersheba. Now in chapter 21, because this is chapter 22, we will find Abraham. He has found a place of prayer. Now, I believe that we can pray anywhere, okay? But there is a human habit wherein we find a place that is our own. That is just natural human habit, you know. There is a place where you change your clothes. There is a place where you want to eat. And there should always be a place where you want to pray, okay? Now, of course, I can say I can pray in the bathroom and all of those things, but the places where I pray the most will be not only in this church, but in my office, in the attic, okay? Especially my attic is the place where I got so used to communicating with God. Now, Abraham has a place. Can anybody guess what that place is? What is that place that Abraham, common place, chapter 21? By the tree. He found this tree, and he will always, maybe because he's old, he wants to cool himself down, but he will always, we find this tree. Remember when he was, when he found the three angels on their way to Sodom and Gomorrah? Abraham has a place of prayer. and that tree. Now, what is another place of prayer that God assigned for us to have? Huh? In the Bible. The temple. This house shall be called the house of prayer. A temple is a place. Now, because I'll tell you this, no matter what we say, you can pray in your office. How many of you really pray in your office? Um, when we are out, we are very busy doing our own thing. There are only two places in the Bible wherein prayer is mostly conducted. Number one, when a temple was built, it's the temple of the Lord. This house shall be called the house of prayer. Second place is the house. But most houses are no longer a place of prayer. Because mostly in the house, you use it as a prayer during mealtime. But how many of you eat together? Okay? A lot of families, they don't eat together. So what happens to that? But the house that you have your dwelling place is also a house of prayer. I told you before, synagogues are not places of prayer. Okay? When the synagogue was first established, it was not a place of prayer. What is a synagogue? Synagogue was a place where people come to study the Torah or to discuss the word of the Lord. And yet in the second century, on the final destruction of Jerusalem, well, after 70 AD when the temple was destroyed, but actually in the second century, when the Jews realized that the temple will not be rebuilt in their lifetime and that there is no way that Jerusalem will be rebuilt in their lifetime also, they shifted the focus. The rabbinic tradition, which is basically on the discussion of the Torah, now they say, we will use the synagogues now as a place of prayer. And I told you that the church is patterned after a synagogue. And so when we come together, this is a place of prayer. And during times of prayer, we will find in the New Testament, the apostles will gather on Solomon's colonnade. It became a place of prayer. And from house to house, that's another translation, they break bread, they fellowship, and of course they pray. So when they do Bible studies, as we will call it right now, it's a place of prayer. But it is very important that all of us here have a place of our own that we can call our place of prayer. I don't know what your place is, okay? And by the way, when you find your place of prayer, you don't allow just anybody to invade that, okay? Now, of course, in my attic, from time to time, it'll be a place where my kids will sleep because of one reason or the other. But I will only tolerate so much of them sleeping in my attic. I'll only tolerate so much. Comes a point I have to get out of there. Because my wife will tell you in the middle of the night, especially if I can't sleep, I'll just go upstairs. And that will be a time wherein I read my Bible a lot, I pray a lot. You should have a place of prayer. Now, common now in Christian houses, they allocate a place. They call it an office. But it will be nice, for example, if in your houses you allocate a place where you can go there and study. It will be like your own private library. Because most houses are a mess, especially Filipino houses. I envy houses that I see on television that are super clean. I envy those houses because, look, if your place is such a clutter, you can tell me you're praying, it will be hard to pray. When your place is a clutter, okay? You look at the temple, the way the Lord organized it. Everything is perfect, okay? Because even, for example, when we visit each other, if somebody tells you, oh, you can sit anywhere you want, you don't feel comfortable. If you have to sit on the couch of somebody's house, and then you have to stow away books on the couch or clothes on the couch, and you help clean, it becomes very uncomfortable for you, and you don't even want to sit down. One of the things that we have to develop is a place in our own houses wherein everybody knows it's a place of prayer, especially if there are multiple children, that they can respect that when you go there, they don't just disturb you. Because in houses, nobody asks for permission, they will just disturb you. Okay? But what about it if you are praying? I was visiting a friend of mine in northern Philippines in Lawag. She was my student and later on became a colleague of mine. She likes to pray, but I feel sometimes uncomfortable because there were a couple of times I have to go there and do something with her church, and she invited me a couple of times to go to her house. And first thing in the morning, it's a very small apartment, up and down apartment, and she will tell everybody I'll be having my devotion, and so she will pick up her guitar, she will read her Bible, she will pray, and the whole house, you will hear her singing, worshiping, and praying. Now, there is nothing wrong with that, but there is a sense of discomfort on my part because she will ask me, meet me at this time. So I met her in her house, and her husband showed me in, and I can hear her singing, I can hear her praying, and I was wondering, why did you ask me to come at this time, but you are praying? You see? But then, for example, me, I can go to my attic, and if I don't want anybody to get in, I lock my door, and I'll just spend time there. And I can only tolerate so much presence in that attic, okay? Because it's a place wherein you can meet with God. Now, before this trial began, or test of faith, Abraham has already have a place. It's by this tree, and he will always seek God. You need to have a place of prayer. Now, this is a house of prayer, but most of you don't come here ahead of time. So this is not a place where you spend 30 minutes before the service and kind of silence yourself and unclutter your soul. You don't take advantage of that, but it should be a place that you can, especially if you are renting in a small apartment, and if you are in that situation, if you have a small house, it's very difficult to find a place, really, to separate. But if you have a way of separating a room in your house and make it a place of prayer, it will be great, okay? Now, here, the Bible says that in verse 1, after these things, God tested Abraham. So his prayer life established, and now God tested Abraham. So it is now God who initiated the testing. Testing is different from temptation. Now, I know that there are some alternate translation out there that makes it look like it's a temptation. God cannot be tempted, nor will He tempt you, but He will test you. Okay? Testing is different from temptation. Temptation is a solicitation for you to do evil, if you're talking about temptation to sin. Whenever you are tempted, understand that the goal or the purpose of the enemy is for you to fall. So he will solicit for you to commit sin. So when you say, well, I'm being tempted by the devil, then you know the purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. That's the ultimate purpose. However, when God tries you or tests you, it is a different thing. Because testing is for the sake of you finding out what you are made out of. It's like quality control. Okay, I always illustrate, for example, this chair. This is designed to carry so much weight. For example, I don't know how much weight this chair can take. Say it can take 500 pounds. That means before this was put in circulation to be bought, they put weight in here, and that is it can carry 500 pounds. You see those testings on television of cars like Mercedes-Benz and Volvo, two of the safest cars around. Now BMW is trying to catch up. They will really ram the car on something and see its effect to test. Now, if it gives in at a little pressure, they are disappointed because they say, well, that's not the engineering of that car. The engineering of that car is to be able to withstand, okay, certain pressures. Now, listen, the way God is building your life and mine is to be victorious. That means by design, the moment we start moving on to maturity, whatever trials of faith comes our way, we are meant to be able to withstand it. Okay? We are meant to withstand. That is the design. That's why the life of God was placed in us. Okay? So, God wants to test Abraham, and God knows what he's made out of. But it is important for us to know what we are made out of. By the way, even testings that are not testings of faith, just general testings of life, it makes you realize what you are made out of and what you're not made out of. For example, you may like singing, but every time you sing, the chicken run, you know. That is a test already. You are realizing, whoa, my voice is not meant for that. It's meant for, maybe you can make a joyful noise, but it's not meant for that. But then there are some people that the moment you make them sing, boy, they sing like a bird. Remember that fat lady from England, Susan Boyle? I mean, she looked like a comic. In fact, she looked like autistic when she first showed up. Well, even me, when I saw the thing, I said, what is this, you know? Is this a joke? And then she sang. Well, after she sang, this heavenly voice came out. It turned out she loved singing. And she has always been singing. And so that test, that forum, that venue, gave way to her talents. When God is testing us, it's giving way to what we are made out of. And again, initially, by the design of God, we are meant to withstand pressures that others cannot take. That is the design of God. And so if every time we are being tested or tried in our faith and we immediately say, well, I cannot handle it, well, you are disagreeing with God already. He will never allow us to go through these difficulties without us having first the ability to withstand them. Okay? And God initiated. God will test us. Because God decided, I will try Abraham. So whether you like it or not, we are being tested, we have been tested, and we will continue to be tested. Okay? Purpose of a trial is for you to see who you really are. First, God needs to show Abraham that he can be trusted. Look at verse 12. For now I know that you fear God, know his intimate knowledge. Testing, when God puts you to a trial, it is meant for you to know you can be trusted. I have a friend who is in the federal government. You know how in the air they have what we call as air marshal. Okay, he told me this. We were talking and said, I tried to become an air marshal. I failed. Now he's licensed to carry firearm in the airplane, but he is not licensed. He failed. I don't know how many times he applied. He failed to pass the test of becoming an air marshal. I said, why? What does it take for you to become an air marshal? He said, one test that we have 50 yards out, he said, 50 yards, 4-inch target, a circle. He said you have to fire in something like 10 seconds or 5 seconds, something ridiculous like that, 8 rounds and hit 8 times. 4-inch of target, 50 yards, and the simulation is you are moving. He said, I could not pass the thing. He said, you don't joke with those air marshals. Because those air marshals, if they are in the airplane, there is turbulence, they will hit you. That is the test. You see, they have been tested with that. And I asked, so how, he said, when you are testing for air marshal, how do they train you? He said, one of the training they have is when they go and exercise shooting, said, they'll be given a box of ammo. It will be dropped in their place, and they can finish it. He said, they will supply you with everything that you need, but at the end of the testing, you should be able to, 50 yards out, 4 inches target, out of 10 rounds that you will release, you will hit it 8 times. He said, this is how accurate they are. But they are tested to do that. Okay? So now when you test and you cannot hit a thing, you release 10 rounds and you cannot hit it even once, don't complain. Don't tell the U.S. government, oh, let's go for DEI now because you're not No, no, you cannot hit the target because can you imagine if you're in the air and there's a problem, you shoot everywhere, you hit all the passengers, but you don't hit the perpetuator. That is how it is. Now, our testings are different. Okay? The testings of my faith, now you will not be tempted beyond what you are able. So the moment you are tested by the Lord, you are able to handle it. Sometimes we have a mental block and an emotional block that says, I cannot handle it. No. The moment the Lord allows you to go through certain testing, you can handle it. Say, I can handle it. It's your mind. Your mind is not renewed, but you can handle it. Okay? Because if you cannot handle it, the Lord will never allow you to be tested beyond your abilities. You can handle it. And the moment you are able, then more responsibilities. And so, all of us go through certain trials. I mean, you can go to reading your Bible, you can go to praying, you can go to going to church, you can go to witnessing. Some people are very scared to witness. They don't know how to witness. They make an excuse. I never went through a seminar in witnessing. None of the apostles went through seminar in witnessing. None of the first Christians went through a seminar in witnessing. Their witness is their lives. And they were told to go and tell the good things that the Lord has done for you. That is witnessing, essentially. And so, the moment the Lord tests you, puts you in a situation where you can witness, then you can witness. If you are able to pass it, then the Lord will give you more responsibilities. If you are not able to handle it, then you will have lesser responsibilities because you give up. Okay, so Abraham needs to see that God can trust him. Why is it that it is important for Abraham to know that God can trust him? Because when God allows you to be tested, He has certain responsibilities that He wants you to carry. Look, first there was the temptation on the testing of faith on Hagar. He failed there. Okay? He failed. He should have said no, but he failed. And then later on, he regretted it because Ishmael has to be sent out. Can you imagine to go through that difficulty of sending him out, and then now you have an enemy of Israel that is also a son of Abraham? It is because of Abraham's doing. It should not have happened if he did not take on Hagar, but he failed in that test. But Abraham continued to prosper in his faith, and in the process, his faith became strong, and when God told him, kick Ishmael out, that takes a lot of faith to be able to say, hey, listen, you're out of this house. That takes a lot of faith. And Abraham passed that test. But then more responsibilities will be given to Abraham. If you want more responsibilities from the Lord, then you have to pass the tests of faith or the trials of faith that the Lord will allow you to go through. For example, let me ask this question. How many of you here, I'll just ask a general question. You will tell me, I'll ask you this question. Do you love God above all? That's not a trick question. That's a real question. So the question is, do you love God above all? Man, you're very hesitant. Okay. Let me repeat that for a third time. Do you love God above all? Okay. Napilitan to yung sumagot yan. Now, your response to that question is going to be tested. Yeah. And it has been tested and will continue to be tested. I told you, a friend of my kuya, Chinese family, Buddhists, and they're not religious Buddhists, but he got born again. After he got born again, suddenly the parents is now sacrificing something to Buddha's image and is beginning to pray and told him, we are Buddhists in this house. You cannot be a Christian. Well, he continued to worship the Lord. He no longer offers sacrifice to Buddha. He doesn't bow down to Buddha anymore. He doesn't pray to the family anymore. He is a Christian. Well, the parents get upset. And they will continue to tell him, son, we're Chinese, we are Buddhists. You cannot, it's okay for Chinese to go to a Christian school because of the good education, but we worship Buddha. Well, after some time, the parents got fed up. And they're not even devout Buddhists. One day, he was telling my queer the story. He came home, And the parent says, we told you that we only worship Buddha. Now you choose. Are you going to be a Christian and keep worshiping Jesus? Or you're going to be a Buddhist? If you're going to be a Buddhist, you can stay in this house. But if you're going to be a Christian, you leave this house. His friend smiled at his parents, went to his room, picked up a few of his items, then left the room and says, Mom, Dad, I love you so much, but I love Jesus more. I'll come and visit. Left the house. Yeah, left the house. By the way, that person became a mighty evangelist in his own right, became a witness. But that is a testing of faith. Now, he doesn't hate his parents. He loves them. But the parents clearly was used to test him. Are you going to worship Buddha? That is a question. Do you love God above all? And he answered it well. Okay, that is a testing of faith. This testing, we know the sacrifice of Isaac. Do you love God above all? And Abraham says, yes. Well, I want your son Isaac. I want your son Isaac. And he passed the test. Now, when you are tested, there are some personal godly characters that trials can build. You know, if you will watch some martial art movies, because James is, where's James? Oh, right there. James is trying to learn karate. I have noticed that, how did you call it, James? When they punch that thing with the rope? Pakiwara? Makiwara, okay? They'll punch that, you know. Because if you don't punch a heavy bag, I don't care how good your form is, there is no strength in your punch. The strength in our punches develops as we hit the bags, okay? Because the moment you hit the bag, then you will develop strength. If you don't hit the bag, there will be no strength in your punch, because that's just part of the exercise. Okay, so you will find these people hitting those bags. That's why boxers like Manny Pacquiao, their hands became weapons, because they hit the bag so much. Can you imagine they can make that bag bend if they hit you? It's not because they are heavier than you or stronger than you. It's just that you can be stronger than them. I mean, a 250-pound person will be certainly stronger than Manny Pacquiao, but he will not be able to hit as hard as Manny Pacquiao, because Pacquiao is tested and he hits the bag all the time, and he hits people in the ring. That's why the heavy punches comes. So now, it develops certain things from him. And before I used to wonder, how come these boxers, when they walk around, especially the champion, they have bodyguards? Well, because they cannot hit anybody. Because their hands became weapons. And you cannot just hit a civilian. Okay, because the civilians are not trained, you are trained. Therefore, it builds certain character in you. You have to have discipline, you have to have self-control, because if you don't develop discipline, it can be your end. Look at what happened to Mike Tyson. Look at how, he lost a lot of his money simply because he doesn't have the discipline to control himself. Supposedly, he even hit his wife. I was looking at the picture of his wife, such a small girl, you know. Can you imagine if that is true, that he hit that woman? I wonder why he stayed alive. But you begin to wonder about these things. So there are certain characters that are developed in you. Do you wonder why big-time leaders, like presidents, like military commanders, they have no room to be impatient? Why? Because the amount of power that they have. For example, our parents. Our parents cannot be impatient with us because of that authority they have. Can you imagine if all parents are so impatient, they'll just kick all their children out? And can you imagine what happened to those children? A lot of children are braggarts and proud people, and they don't know anything about anything. So the parents now, being more mature, presumably, has to exercise a lot of patience. And that is going to be tried. Because if the parents lose patience, and there are parents who lose their patience, Okay, you will not eat. You will not go to school. The amount of power that they carry can damage somebody. Leadership is like that. You have to have certain amount of patience. Otherwise, I know some pastors they just curse everybody that comes along their way. They don't have the character. They are failing in their tests. So, if you say, "Well, I'm being tested by the Lord," if you are being tested by the Lord, certain characters will begin to show. And if they are not showing, you are failing the test. I'm interchangeably using test and trial here. You are failing the test. Okay? Now, Galatians 6:9. Let us not get tired of doing good, for we will reap the if we will reap for we will reap at the proper time if we don't give up. Hebrews 12 verse 3. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, so that you won't grow weary and give up. Because now, if the Lord has already designed for you to withstand trial, say the moment a trial comes to your way, you are able to do it. And by the way, I can objectively tell everybody here, whatever trial passes your way, you can pass it. How come some people fail? Those two passages tells us the reason. Number one, we give up. You just give up. You know. Some people just don't have the heart. I have seen. Remember the playing days of Michael Jordan. Now, of course, it's in LeBron James and Steph Curry. When Jordan was playing, for as long as Jordan is playing, they have a chance to win. That is the culture that people like Michael Jordan puts on the team. For as long as I'm here, we can win. Doesn't matter how many points lead. I mean, Brady has the same aura. For as long as Brady is playing, we can come back and we can win. There are certain people that are built like that. They pass that. So now, we are all built to pass the trials. Why? Why do we fail? We give up. We give up. You know, the second thing here is we become weary in doing good. We can choose to give up. And sometimes you watch somebody, why do you give up? You know, one of the beautiful thing about boxing, whenever I watch it, is if an opponent is already losing, bloodied, like one of the opponents of Pacquiao, I forgot his name. And the comment that they're making is the referee should stop it. The corner should stop it. Should throw in the white flag, because a person like him doesn't deserve to be a punching bag by Pacquiao. And later on in the interview, Manny Pacquiao was said to have been telling this boxer, "I'm going to hit you with a hook. I'm going to hit you with a right cross," something like that. Here it comes, because he doesn't want to damage the opponent even more. A certain discipline, a certain character. You know, some people will just destroy you. But when I heard that Manny Pacquiao has developed a character, when he wins, he will refuse to punish the person. You know, he already win by points, and everybody knows he win. He will refuse to damage the person, and will even tell the referee, "Stop the fight." You see, because a good boxer will never quit. They say. You see, never give up. A lot of us, we fail the test not because we can't handle it. We just give up. Or we get tired. We become weary. I don't want to keep doing this. You know, I might as well just quit. I just don't want to keep doing this. That's why important for us as human beings, even in our works, we are being given time of vacation. Because a vacation time gives you time to pull back and reflect. If you are a busybody doing everything all the time, you won't have time to reflect. But we fail because we give up. The temptation of Jesus, you will find that Satan is involved. The first 40 days, or maybe you can say 39 days, the enemy is just like throwing softening guns. The last day when he said, "Turn this stone into bread," those are the heavy guns. But Jesus never give up. Okay? That's why Paul says, do not give up on doing good. That is a choice that you and I can have when we are being tested. We must not give up. But these are some of the characters that develop in Abraham. Number one, Abraham became even more prayerful. So Abraham continues to be available to God's call on him. He said, "Here I am." This is one of the shortest kinds of prayer in the Bible. You know, we have Peter praying, "Lord, save me." But, but aside from that, perhaps this is one of the shortest prayer in the Bible. Here I am. Abraham, Abraham, here I am. This is one of the shortest prayer in the Bible. Abraham is still ready to do God's will. Now there has been several trials in the life of Abraham, and sometimes when there are certain people that you don't want to see. Okay, so the moment you see them, ito na naman. Or perhaps I've seen this in my kids because sometimes they don't want my wife or me to be giving them instructions or orders. Yeah. Sometimes they are about to come down from the second floor, and I will call DJ because you can see the footsteps. You can hear the footsteps. Suddenly the footstep stops, and then DJ backs off. Yeah. John does that too, and James does that too. And they just back off. They're tired. They're fed up. Now, Abraham, you look prior to this chapter, there's been many trials in the life of Abraham, but every time God called Abraham, here I am. I'm ready as always. You know, there are times God will tell us to do something, we just get tired. Yeah. We will pray, "Lord, you speak to me." But we really don't want to hear His voice anymore. We're just tired. We give up. We're fed up. You know. But Abraham, after so many trials, here I am. Meaning, he even had this place of prayer by the tree in Mamre, basically. That's where it started. He will always be under the shade of this tree. So some people say, some scholars say, Abraham likes to pray during noontime because the heat of the sun is up. So when the sun is up, he will go to the shade and begin to pray. Okay? Now some of you, perhaps you pray early in the morning, some of you pray late at night, some of you never pray at all. But this Abraham will pray in the middle of the day. Well, the sun is up and will be under the shade of the tree. And his response to God has always been, "Here I am." When we are under trial, we know that we are passing the test if the trial of faith makes us pray even more. If during trial and after being tried, we lose the fire for prayer, then we are failing it, we're giving up. Because especially when you don't have the answer, then it should drive you to seek God even more. Can you imagine, for example, when Sarah told Abraham, "I want Hagar and her son out of this house." You think Abraham just went out of the tent, stormed out of the tent? "Oh, Sarah, you're too much. You gave Hagar to me. You're too much." You know what Abraham did? He prayed. How do we know he prayed? Because God talked to him and said, "Abraham, do what Sarah is telling you." Meaning, after that, he went to God. He went to God. So obviously, what he did not do, what he did not pray for, is when Sarah told him, "Take Hagar," because the initial reaction of Abraham seems to be no. That seems to be the initial reaction. But obviously, he did not seek God on this one, because God insisted sometime later and said, "Hey, listen, I want to have a child through another woman, a surrogate. I want a surrogate mom." Abraham doesn't seem to have sought God for that. And you know, when we are under heavy trial, we do a lot of things that we think is right, but actually it's just on our own. By the way, there's a lot of actions we have undertaken. A lot of words came out of our lips that should have been out of our lips had we sought God first. Okay. So now Abraham have learned lesson from Hagar. I'm gonna ask God first. And remember, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, he was asking God, if there's 50, will you destroy Sodom and with the righteous, with the unrighteous? And he was able to probe into the mind of God. So to handle trials in our lives, if we are praying people, we should be even more prayerful. Second, he doesn't delay in his obedience. That is in verse 3. He did what God wants him to do right away. Say right away. You know, failure is looming when we don't do what God says right away. This is one of the problems of the fall. We really think we are smart, and we really think we are so convinced that we are so convinced we have enough brain power to overcome whatever we're going through. And so instead of listening to God, we end up analyzing it ourselves. But here, he doesn't delay in his obedience. That's why among fundraisers in churches, what they will do is they'll give you an emotional shock. Preachers will cry. So the moment you're emotionally motivated, you give, even if you don't want to give. Because if you go home and you realize, oh, why in the world did I give? Why in the world did I give that? There is somebody sent me an offering when we still have PayPal. I think I forgot how much it was. So this person is always giving offering. I don't know what happened. Maybe there's a change of mind, but he suddenly I received a notice in my PayPal. Somebody is reclaiming because they can reclaim. And so I said, go ahead, pay it back. I told PayPal because they communicate with you, pay it back. But this person regularly gives to the ministry. Suddenly, she stopped. Now I don't know why she stopped. In fact, she even I think sent an email saying that I want my money back. You see, because sometimes people give out of emotional response. And by the way, when you make commitment to God, if it's made out of emotional response, which a lot of it actually to begin with is emotional response. Like, do you love God? Yes. Because we don't want to be embarrassed. But most of it is emotional response. Peter realized that. That's why when Jesus said, you will be tested tonight. I said, no, I'm willing to die for you. That was an emotional response. I mean, if it was an altar call, who is willing to die with me? And Peter started, I'll die with you. That was an emotional response. Because when he was asked, you're with him? He said, no, to the point that he swore that he's not with Jesus. It was an emotional response. So one of the things that you and I have to ask ourselves is, whenever we make commitment to God, is it an emotional response? Or is it a spiritual response? That's why, for example, sometimes you say, well, I'm going to read my Bible this time the whole year. Is it an emotional commitment? Or is it, it's just like anything else. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be in shape. I'm going to be muscular. Well, that's an emotional commitment that you make because you saw a picture, you saw an advertisement, and there is really no commitment. It's just an emotional response to something. That's why commercials are very important because all commercials solicits emotional response. How many times have you seen an infomercial and you bought it right away? It's an emotional response. So the product came to you and you didn't even use it. Yeah. When Herbert, the lawyer who is into woodworking, finally gave me a lot of things. You know, he gave me some stuff that he bought that are still in the package. The price is there. The box was not even opened. Because it was an emotional response to these magazines that he received. And because he has money, he keeps buying them. An emotional response. So a lot of the things that we do in the church, in our commitment to God, we have to be very careful. Are they emotional response? Or are they spiritual response? But Abraham is never an emotional response because he never delayed his obedience. There is no changing in his mind. He did not, when God told him, I want you to sacrifice your son Isaac, you know. It's just like, you make a commitment. I'm going to fast next week. You may, I don't know if it's an emotional commitment. I'm going to fast next week. So you should, 3 days from now, I'm going to be fasting. So immediately you say, well, I'm going to be fasting for 1 week. I better eat a lot of McDonald's. Anyway, I'm not going to be eating for 1 week. And then the night before, I'm going to eat some steak. I'm just, because it is an emotional response. Because if you are really fasting, then a couple of days before fasting, if it's an extended fast, you will prepare yourself already. Because if you keep eating before an extended fast, you will fail. Because you load yourself with food, your stomach is not ready for it. But if you're going to make an extended, say for example, if I make a commitment, I'm going to fast for 1 week. Couple of days before that, I will start regulating my food intake. Preparing my stomach not to take food. Because if I eat a lot before the fast, I am going to fail, most probably. Because that was an emotional decision. It's an emotional response to a truth heard. It's still a truth, but an emotional response. Do not delay your obedience. Abraham did not. So he did not tell Isaac, well, you're going to die anyways, my son. I'll take you tomorrow for a vacation. I'll take you to the beach. You know, you can eat whatever you want. But he said, well, the longer I sit on this decision, the more I will delay it and probably will not. I remember when my pastor in the Philippines offered me to become an intern. Called me in his office and said, Jose, I want you to join the staff. And he said, hey, listen, if you make it for 1 year, I will promote you. If not, you're out. But you have to go through 1 year of internship. And he said, I'm giving you 2 weeks to make a decision. So I said to him, well, I'm going to take my board exam. I said, for what? Are you going to be a minister or are you going to be an engineer? Why do you want to take the board exam? I said, because I have to take it. So that I took 5 years of engineering, I have to take it. And said, for what? I mean, he literally challenged me on everything. But I said, 2 weeks or so. After 2 weeks, forget it. If you are ready, in 2 weeks, report here for work. But if not, that's your decision. He did not give me that much time. You know why? Because the longer I dwell on it, the more I back off. Have you ever noticed? I mean, a lot of you, I can even tell, you make a decision in the past. I am going to do this. But because the execution is much farther than when you make a decision, it gives you time to back off. An emotional response. That's why we will find that there's a lot of decisions we made in the past that we should have executed right away. This is a life-changing. I'm going to sacrifice my son. Can you imagine if he says, son, I'm going to take you out first. Let's have a good time. Take him to a beach. You go to a party with him. Then the more you will love him, the more you will miss him, the more you will not, sacrifice him. Because you just tempted yourself in the process. He did not even consult Sarah. Some people say Sarah was already very old during this time. Well, she was. And the same year, shortly thereafter, some scholars believe, shortly thereafter, Sarah died. And one commentator that I read even said, upon hearing what Abraham attempted to do to Isaac, like it gave her a heart attack. And drove her crazy, you know, and that became a trigger for her death. Now, these are just opinions of the rabbis. But he did not even consult Sarah, because the last time Sarah was consulted, they have been talking about having kids. The last time she consulted Sarah, Hagar became the answer. You know, she should not have been asking Sarah, what are we going to do? And Sarah, you know, normal husband and wife. I have no problem. You have no problem. How come we're not having kids? So like my wife, when she was not pregnant the first month, she keeps telling me, go to the doctor. Second month, go to the doctor. I said, why do you always ask me to go to the doctor? Why don't you go to the doctor? Because my wife was afraid she's not going to have kids. And so I keep assuring my wife, kids is not going to be a make or break deal with our marriage. I said, our kids will grow up and just leave us anyways. That's what I told my wife. What, we don't have kids. Well, the kids come and go. That's how practical I think. I said, the important thing is you. She said, so when she had critical pregnancy, she said, if the doctor asks you, the child or me, spare the child, let me die. I said, no, the child will die. The child is innocent. He's in heaven waiting for us. But I said, we can make another baby, but I said, I can't make another wife. You know, that's how practical I think. My decisions are made. Had there been a critical pregnancy, for example, on the part of my wife, and the doctor asked me, whom will you choose, the wife or the baby? My choice is the wife, not the baby. Because the baby is in heaven. I mean, I know that theologically, the baby is in heaven. Okay? But the wife, when the kids grow up, they leave you anyways. So it's just you and your wife again. So that is the decision that I already made beforehand. Very clear. But my wife will always say, go ahead to the doctor. Go ahead to the doctor. Sometimes it's better not to consult the wife. You see? You make the decision. You make the choice. You begin to say, this is what God told me. This is what I am going to do. Okay? Now, the wife can disagree. You know, he talked too much to Hagar, to Sarah. Hagar happened, and Ishmael came out. Okay? Number one, he became more prayerful. Number two, he did not delay his obedience. So don't delay your obedience. Number three, he worships. Worship is ascribing worth to. God is worth it. Say it with me. God is worth it. Say it. That's what worship is. Ascribing worth to. Is God worth it? You see? God demands certain things from us. Is He worth it? Does He deserve the sacrifice of Isaac? Whatever God wants or demands from him, remember this, he more than deserves. And so the Lord will ask certain things from us. One of the favorite love story that I heard was, well, he just died, I think, during COVID at the age of something like 100. Ernest Angley from Akron, Ohio. His ministry is known for angelic visitations, tons of healings. Well, he doesn't have they don't have children, I think, and he prays for other people, and they get healed, and then his wife got sick. And he said he prayed for his wife, and his wife got worse. And then his wife died. He said when his wife died, he heard of what Smith Wigglesworth did. He tried to raise his wife back to life. And the wife keeps falling down dead. And Ernest Angley said, the name of his wife was Angel. He said that he was so brokenhearted, he thought he's going to have a shock. He said the capillaries underneath his skin burst. He was sweating blood, like Jesus. He was sweating blood. And he said he knew he was going to die during that time because he was so brokenhearted. And but prior to that, when he was trying to raise his wife from the dead, God spoke to him and says, Ernest, I want her home. God did not tell her why, because she was young. Why? But God just simply told him, I want her home. Will you give her to me? And finally, Ernest Angley said, he thought that if he makes a decision, he will be relieved of the pain. So he said, yes, Lord, you can have my wife. After he said that, the wife died. But he said, I was so brokenhearted. He said, I started sweating blood. He said, I thought I was going to die. So at that point, because he's got so many angelic visitations, an angel appeared to him. And he said, I thought he was Jesus. And so the angel did not say anything, but just hugged him. Just gave him a bear hug, this angel. And so the moment the angel gave me a bear hug, he said, all the pain, all the pressure left me. And that was his healing. But that is a decision he made. You see, because he was trying to raise his wife from the dead, and God says, I want her home. No explanation, just I want her home. You see? Now, uh, people realize, like him, that God is worth it. There are certain demands that the Lord will make of us. When somebody makes a demand from you, you are now called upon to ascribe worth. Say you have a boyfriend, and the boyfriend says, if you truly love me, you will sleep with me, have sex with me. And you say, well, the Lord forbids immorality. Now you are making a choice. Who are you going to ascribe worth to? If you don't want to lose the boyfriend or the girlfriend, and says, okay, I will have sex with you, then you gave more worth to that person than to God who demands purity. That's all it boils down to. Now, the one that you are worshiping now is your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's just what it is. She is or he is worth it. I don't care if this is a display of blatant disobedience to the Word of God. He or she is worth it. That's whom you worship now. Okay? But Abraham, when God demands, I want your son, Lord, you're worth it. Even my son, I can sacrifice. Number 4, he puts complete trust in God. This is in verses 5 and 8. He told the young men that they will come back after they worship. He believes that it is God who provides the sacrifice. You know what what conclusion it makes me draw? I don't know how Abraham conceptualized this, but when he told the young men, we will come back, because he is old, and if Sarah was indeed very old and dying, then there is no... scholars believe that on the same year, Sarah died. So that means there's no more time really for Sarah to be pregnant. And the promise is from Sarah. So somehow, Abraham thought, I don't know how, but one way or the other, God will make this happen. I will sacrifice Isaac, but somehow, God has to bring him back to life. Because Sarah died on the same year. I know a couple of months perhaps later, Sarah died on the same year. There's no way that Sarah will be pregnant. And if the promise is coming from Sarah's womb, then somehow God has to raise Isaac back to life. He made that conclusion. Okay, he made that conclusion. Now that is faith. His faith was put on trial. Because you know, when the Lord tries us, really our faith is on the line. Can our faith handle it? Now, of course, your faith can handle it. But will you give up or be weary? Okay? Next, number 5. He was resolute, verses 9 to 10. Meaning he's firm, unyielding, and unwavering. He will obey no matter what or no matter the consequence or the consequences. This is a big difference of Abraham from most of us. Abraham is willing to pay anything. We, on the other hand, we measure if it is something that is convenient for us or not. For example, let's talk about philosophy. We have heard, for example, that Kamala Harris said that she will ban fracking. She likes electric vehicles and all of that. But there is nothing wrong with those philosophy. I mean, who doesn't want clean energy? If there is a means of not using fossil fuel, that will be great because of the emission that they really have. You know, if we can have some sort of energy that doesn't need to require those things, perfect. But we don't have that means right now. But that is a question of philosophy. Do you really believe that? But now that she wants to become president, she said, oh no, I never said I will ban fracking. Well, she said it. Meaning, she is not resolute. And by the way, this is where our faith in God comes into play. A lot of us are willing to make commitments. I'll die for you, Lord. I'll give everything for you, Lord. Are we resolute though? Do we really have the firmness? Are we immovable That's what you call as resolute. You know, the Great Britain, when, who's this? First president, I think, gave a gift of table to the White House. They call it the resolute table. Because the moment you sit there, that's why it's called the resolute table. Because now, the mother, supposedly of the U.S., Great Britain, is trying to send a message to this new republic. Whoever sits in power as president has to be resolute. When you make, and by the way, the good presidents that we have that firmness that they have. Because you sit on the resolute table, it reminds you, I cannot be flimsy. I cannot be wavering. And that is the problem that James points out. A lot of us don't receive anything from God because we waver. We don't have the resoluteness necessary for our faith to continue to grow. A lot of people will stop obeying God if it makes them inconvenient, uncomfortable with what God is asking them. And lastly, He's always thankful, verse 14. After God provided the ram, He named the place, the Lord will provide. Now this shows gratitude. He even memorialized God's provision by naming the place in honor of God. Can you imagine? He already tied Isaac, already put him on the altar. Raise the knife. And God says, don't do that. And then he found a ram whose horns were caught in a thicket. But he was resolute. As far as he is concerned, Isaac was dead. But then he was replaced by the ram. So can you imagine the kind of, if I was Abraham, I'm raising my knife and I was thinking about my wife. It's in a very micro comparison. Brother Willie will be shopping and he will be thinking about Sister Cherry. And I'll tempt him and say, buy that. No, I can see the face of my wife. You know? Can you imagine when Abraham was raising the knife? He can see and Sarah was not a weakling. She was a strong woman. She can see the face of Sarah. She can, perhaps the stories of him and Isaac playing together just runs through his mind. But he was resolute. I'm gonna sacrifice him. And say, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna sacrifice him. So can you imagine the kind of gratitude that well from his soul when God says, now I know that you fear me. It's just like, Abraham, you pass the test. Okay? You pass the test. And by the way, this is a person who passed the test being given by God is always grateful. I mean, I thank God for counting me worthy, faithful, calling me into the ministry. Paul was tried several times. And he saw the hand of God. And at the end, he was saying, oh, thank God he called me. Can you imagine the kind of struggles that Paul had? Sometimes you will see the impatience of Paul in the writings. But can you imagine? He passed all of those tests. He said, thank God. I am what I am today by the grace of God. But the moment you pass the trials of faith that God brought in your life, you will notice that gratitude. You know, every time we have guests in the house, or even people who, you know, and they'll say, oh, you're lucky. And my wife and I will always say, no, we're blessed. Because we're very grateful for all the things that the Lord did for us. Because it's not humanly possible that we're able to do the things that we're doing if God is not with us. Now, we pass the tests, we failed some tests, but we passed some tests. We can't take the credit for all of those things that we passed. Because have you noticed when you're going through testings in life, you begin to realize that if not for the grace and the strength of God, you would not have made it. And you did not make it because you did not anchor yourself on the strength of God. That's the only way you will fail. You refuse to anchor yourself in the grace of God. And that is without analyzing it too much. Okay? But your faith and my faith will continue to be tested. Especially nowadays, it will continue to be tested. And the times that we're living in right now speaks that out loud. Our faith will be tested. And he who endures to the end will be saved. Amen? That's all it's done. Praise God.